Hello, Eric Sheptuck coming at you. Now, the big news is that I have arranged a meeting with Washington, D.C.'s Attorney-General Karl Racine so I can give him a tutorial about D.C. homelessness. I'm going to invite a few friends, and we're going to have a sit-down with him at his request, actually. He sent me requests in May of 2017 and another one in April of 2018 asking that I meet with him and teach him about the homeless issue. Unfortunately, even though I did read several of his emails in May of 2017, I missed the one where he asked me to teach him about homelessness. You know, you don't catch all the emails. I get so many of them. But as I was doing a mail search this month, April 2018, I saw that email that I had missed. And long story short, let's not cry over spilled milk. He asked again this year, so I'm going to take him up on it. I arranged for the meeting to take place at 12:30 p.m. on April 26th, 2018. And hopefully I'll have 3 or 4 friends with me, and it will be a very productive meeting. I should say that there is so much for me to say about him that I actually had to write some stuff down, so I'm out here in a light breeze at night shooting this video, and I am reading off of my notes here. So, here's some stuff about Karl Racine. He is Washington, D.C.'s first elected Attorney General. That changes the dynamic of the office because previously the AG was appointed by the mayor and worked for the mayor and did the bidding of the mayor of the administration. Now that he's elected, he has a dual mandate. He still has to serve the government, but he also has to represent the people, as if the government doesn't consist of people. I always wonder when the X8, I'm not sure. X2 is up there on the H Street, but I'm not sure about the X8. Okay, so back to you. Well, it's because now that he is elected, he has this dual mandate that I began to explain. And he's trying to figure out how to fulfill this second part of his mandate, the part that hasn't always been part of the AG's job. And so, as part of his learning, he wants to hear about the issues faced by homeless people. So I've been putting a lot of work into figuring out how I'm going to present the issue to him. I've done a lot of writing and rewriting, and you can see it on my blog post at theobsoletes.com/Eric. That's ERIC. But let me see, what else? So, in the spirit of full disclosure, I do not work for Karl Racine. I don't represent him, but I am beginning to work with him. Furthermore, he is up for re-election. Many people would say that he's pandering to the voters because he wants to get re-elected. I would argue that based on what I said about him having reached out to me in May of 2017, that I do think that he is genuine about wanting to understand homelessness. And I also think he's very anxious to serve as more of a counterweight against the mayor's power. Mayor Muriel Bowser was elected in 2014 in D.C. This is a Democratic city. Every mayor has been a Democrat, so the Democratic primary is our de facto election. She won with the Democratic primary in 2014 with 42,000 Democratic votes out of a possible 380,000. That's 11%. There were a lot of other candidates, so the votes got split in several different ways. There was low voter turnout. In 2018, She doesn't have any viable competition. There were like 10 people running against her in the primary. They had to get at least 2,000 signatures by March 21st. I don't think all of them got at least 2,000 good signatures, because they do get contested, and if they're illegible, if the person doesn't really live in D.C., if they're not really part of the party for which the petition was, if they say that they're a Democrat but they're really a Green Party or independent, they get knocked off, and then you count only the good signatures. So some of the 10 didn't make the final cut for the primary. At any rate, none of them were considered viable. They were all unknown people. But that said, she's running essentially unopposed. She's not even putting up campaign signs. She's not even engaging in debates. She figures that she's got this one in the bag. So if you were voted in the first time with 11% of the vote and you still won, or 11% of the voters, I should say, and you still won, and then if you have no real competition during your re-election bid, then you're essentially a dictator by default, not by any fault of your own. There are the things that she's done that are dictatorial, but that's another story. I won't get into that right now. So let me see what else I haven't covered. So Karl Racine, in the latter part of 2017, had said that he was going to run for mayor, and then he withdrew his bid. He decided that he wanted to put more time into transforming the position of the Office of Attorney General, that he hadn't yet done everything that he could and should do in order to make that position as useful as it can and should be to the people of D.C. And that was even before we realized that the mayor was not going to have any real competition going into the primary, because the closing date to get into the primary was March 21st of this year. So let me see. Well, I mentioned that already. Okay, just going through my notes here. So, worst case scenario in this election cycle is that Karl Racine loses in his bid to get reelected as the AG, and that the mayor, Muriel Bowser, wins re-election, because we don't know that the new Attorney General would be as willing to serve as a counterweight to the mayor and to keep her in check. So if she wins and he loses, DC gentrification is going to get even further expedited than it already is under Muriel Bowser's watch. So I sure hope that she loses and he wins. So DC residents, please help me out. Come on. So the next item here, and it is getting a little bit chilly, so I'm starting to shiver a little bit. But my next issue is a very long question, which I'm actually going to read almost verbatim off of the paper. So, I have a big question for Attorney General Karl Racine. Being, as you've expressed, a strong desire to assist DC's homeless, and that the legislative suggestions, policies, and practices of the current mayoral administration, which do or could hurt DC's poor and homeless community, are a mixture of intentional and unintentional acts on the part of the mayor, does your mandate only allow you to take penal or corrective action based on a strict interpretation of the law, or does your mandate allow for you to address unintentional matters related to government dysfunction? Now, that's a long question, so I'm going to read it again. Attorney General Karl Racine. Being as you've expressed a strong desire to assist DC's homeless, and that the legislative suggestions, policies, and practices of the administration which do or could hurt DC's poor and homeless community are a mixture of intentional and unintentional acts on the part of the mayor, does your mandate only allow you to take penal and corrective action based on a strict interpretation of the law, or does your mandate also allow for you to address unintentional matters related to government dysfunction? So I have to go to my next page here because I have so much to say. But I had some email exchanges with the Attorney General in April of 2018, earlier this month. And I won't read the questions that I sent him, but I will read off some of the answers that he sent me. They, for the most part, stand alone, so you don't need to hear the question. Here we go. So he said that he, Karl Racine, will defend Tracy Hughes, the director of the Department of Open Government. So it turns out that Tracy Hughes is a government watchdog, but she is also part of the mayor's administration. Tracy Hughes has been doing her job. She has put the mayor in check on some scandalous things that the mayor has tried to do. And the mayor is trying to push Tracy Hughes out. You can relate that to the story of Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump and all that's going on there. A few other names that you keep hearing in relation to that issue. Of course, Robert Mueller. But same song, different verse. So he has said that he will defend her. Karl Racine has suggested that the Department of Open Government be moved from the mayor's administration and become part of the office of the Attorney General. It makes a lot of sense. Now that the Attorney General is an elected position, now that he is independent of the mayor's administration, let's move the government watchdog over and put the government watchdog under the authority of the Attorney General. Just makes sense. He has said that he continues to speak out against conflicts of interest and the appearance thereof. That was in response to me asking him what he has done and will do about contract steering, because here in DC, mayoral campaigns are often funded, I shouldn't say often, but always funded, largely funded by developers. And after those developers put money into the campaigns, of course, they show up because at the mayor's office and they want contracts. So Karl Racine has spoken out against conflicts of interest and the appearance thereof. He has taken steps against well-heeled donors and contractors. Let me see, the paper's folding up on me here. Okay, he has submitted legislation to prevent pay for play or quid pro quo. He has suggested that there be a law made which bars anyone who has made campaign donations from receiving city contracts for 2 years thereafter. I like all of these ideas that he's putting forth. He has pushed for public financing of campaigns. That's an interesting piece there, because this law, which was actually passed recently by the DC Council, allows for candidates who can't raise money any other way to get campaign money from the city's coffers. And that kills the logic whereby people have to get funding from the developers, and takes away the developers' ability to control local politics. The current mayor, Muriel Bowser, didn't want to fund that law. She didn't want that law to be passed. She threatened not to fund it, but in the end, she put $860,000 toward the initial budget to implement that law. Great. So let me see what else. Karl Racine has told me, as I said earlier, that he wants to have a sit down with me. He did say it in a May 2017 email that I missed until this month. He said it again in an April 2018 email. And that meeting is now scheduled to take place at 12:30 p.m. on April 26th of 2018. And I will bring a few friends with me, and we will give him a tutorial on DC homeless issues. He also said that as AG, he's brought numerous actions against developers. I have at least one friend who might argue against that. He said he's also brought actions against property management companies, against landlords who have unlawfully targeted vulnerable tenants and have otherwise sought to displace long-standing DC residents by pursuing a strategy to constructively evict tenants by not maintaining the property's inhabitable manner. So sometimes landlords will just not fix up the place, and after it falls apart to a certain degree, it's no longer habitable, and the person has to move out. That's especially true when it comes to HUD units, because HUD does not penalize landlords who fail to maintain the place, but HUD will end the contract. And so then, after the landlord lets the place fall into disrepair quite intentionally, and HUD ends the contract, and the landlord doesn't get penalized, then they fix it up once the person has moved out, and then they move somebody else in at market rate. So it is a scandal that has been going on for decades, and HUD has not done anything to stop that, to reverse that. Okay, and finally, my last question to him was, what kind of mayor would be easiest for him to work with if he were to be reelected as Attorney General? And he says that a mayor who cares about DC's most vulnerable residents. So I know that's a lot, but that's what I have to say about Karl Racine. And I'll finish by saying I hope that he gets reelected and that Mayor Muriel Bowser loses her bid for re-election. All right, I'll stop there.